Let's start with a very interesting Reddit story from Epic Sausage 69. Only do what is in my job title? Fine. Good luck paying employees. So, I work for a construction company as an inventory admin. My job is to basically schedule counts of our warehouse and input the numbers they give me for inventory. Then try to see what the problem is when the numbers on the last count and current count don't add up. There is a little bit more to it, but I will not bore you with the specifics. The problem with this job is that when you have been doing it long enough and are good at it, there is less work to do. In the beginning, when counting one rack out of 60 racks of material would take a few days, it was fine because I was always busy. But now that everything is in order, the entire warehouse can be counted in 3 days. This leaves me bored for most of the time. So, to fix this, I studied up on our cloud-based ERP service that we use for all internal and external transactions and have become sort of an expert on it. Every single aspect of this company uses this ERP service to do their job. Timesheets, HR, payroll, accounting, scheduling, management, manufacturing, ordering from vendors, delivering, inventory, etc. all runs through this ERP service. So it is very important that this service is up and running perfectly 24/7. I became so proficient in this service that our VP decided to cut ties with our consultants of the ERP because I could do what they did but better, quicker, and much cheaper. For reference, we were paying these consultants $5,000 a month just to be on standby if we needed them for some sort of problem that could arise from using this ERP and had to dish out more money to fix those problems depending on how many hours of their time was spent to fix said problems. Not sure on their exact rate, but it was something like $200 an hour, and they took weeks to fix anything, while I could fix the problem in time for my daily afternoon break. I never got an official job title or raise of any kind for being an expert on this service. The company just saw me being able to do it and let me fix things that happened, so they no longer needed the outside help. I wasn't too upset because it gave me something due, so I was glad to help the company save money, even if none of that money fell my way. Skip ahead a few months. We now have a new warehouse manager, and someone in the warehouse something up in inventory by sending a bunch of materials to the wrong job with no records of it being shipped. We are talking $500,000 here. In the same day, our ERP had an update that caused a bunch of bugs with our accounting department. So I decided to work on the ERP problem first because the warehouse is more of a delay and not actually stopping anybody from doing their job at the moment, while this accounting problem means our bills are not able to be paid. You can guess what kind of issues we will have if bills are not paid. The ERP bugs turn out to be quite big and numerous, so it ends up taking me a couple days to figure out, but I fix it before any bills are actually due and decided to take lunch a little early to celebrate a victory. Crisis averted. New warehouse manager storms into my office after I get back from lunch and is livid. Apparently, the bosses were pinning the blame on him for the warehouse and considering he is the one who oversees shipments and personnel in the warehouse, the blame is rightfully placed. He starts laying into me, asking why I have not fixed the problem yet, yelling and screaming like a child. I tried explaining that I was fixing an ERP issue and have not had time to look at the warehouse problem yet. He gets even more angry and notes that it is funny how I have time to take early lunches, but not do my job. That started to piss me off, but I held my tongue and kept calm about the situation. He then ordered me to only do what is in my job title and to leave the ERP to the people competent enough to handle it, as he put it. Since this guy was technically my supervisor, I had no choice but to obey. I asked him to send me that in writing, and he snarks and storms back into his office. 5 minutes later, I get an email stating that under no circumstances am I to work on anything related to ERP, unless it involves inventory. QMC. I do nothing but inventory from that point forward, knowing damn well that we would be essentially coasting until we hit a problem that I would refuse to fix. Sure enough, not even a week later, I get an email from HR that some sort of bug in the ERP system was preventing them from accessing payroll to pay employees this week. I reply an apology that I am no longer able to work on ERP bugs due to supervisor, and to refer to the ERP system help guide for further assistance. I knew the help guide was not going to help her in the slightest, but it was no longer my problem, so I was not going to deal with it. Skip a few days later to Friday. I checked my bank account in the morning before getting to work and laughed because there was no money deposited. That problem never got fixed. I hurry up and get to work, excited to see the chaos unfold. And what I was expecting was an understatement. When I show up to work, I see the entire warehouse staff of 50 people walking out of the front door. I stopped one and asked why they are leaving, and they replied with, "I didn't get paid today, so I am not coming back until I do." I go into the office and see the warehouse manager in a panic. He has jobs that need material and nobody to load it onto trucks or deliver. I ask him if he needs help with anything, and he just screams at me to leave his office because he is getting phone calls out the arse from superintendents of jobs asking why our material has not arrived yet. I pass by HR on the way to my office and see a bunch of the bosses huddled up over her computer with her, with angry and confused expressions on their face. I guess trying to figure out the problem. I felt bad for her because it really was something out of her control, but I knew she would ultimately be okay because she had been there for so long that they would never fire her. When I get to my office, I see the VP waiting for me there. He has a very pissed off expression on his face. When we get inside, he demands to know why I did not fix the problem in HR when she emailed me about it. I replied that I am no longer allowed to work on ERP problems as it is not in my job title. He has the most shocked look on his face and asked why all of a sudden I had a change of heart. I show him the email from warehouse manager and I could see the dots connect in his head. He immediately storms out and I see him heading straight to the warehouse manager's office. They were in there for a few hours, but eventually he comes back to my office. He seems calmer now and asks me politely if I can fix the problem in HR and if I can resume fixing the ERP if needed. At this point, I liked the relief of responsibility and told him I would only do it if he put it officially in my job title along with a raise. His calmness turned to anger again, and he says, "I cannot believe you," as he storms out and returns to his office. A few hours later, he sends out a mass email that he has hired the old ERP consultants to fix the problem and that next week everyone would be paid for the money they are owed, along with the money they earned if they return to work. This one surprised me as he would rather pay over $60,000 a year to consultants than give me a few extra bucks an hour for better work. I think he expected me to change my mind and just do it for my own paycheck. But I decided to wait because I knew how these consultants were. And if they managed to fix this problem in a week, I would streak naked through the office. Most of the warehouse staff agreed to return, but were still upset about not getting paid. Sure enough, next Friday comes around. Nobody gets paid again. At this point, it is becoming a real problem, and the entire staff is becoming agitated. They have bills to pay. I even heard a bunch of the warehouse talking about some competitors nearby they could go work for. At this point, I even considered just fixing the problem, because the warehouse didn't deserve to be treated like that due to poor management. Maybe I am the asshole here for this, but I am severely underpaid and can barely afford my apartment. There is no reason I should do extra work for free. That same day, the VP returns to my office and hands me papers. These papers said that I would be promoted to a newly created position that dealt with inventory to ERP upkeep. It would be its own department, and he would be my direct supervisor. Also came with a hefty raise. All I had to do was sign and agree. I looked up at him after reading the paper, and he had the saddest look on his face. "Please just sign it." The consultants said it would take them weeks to get around to fixing it due to the high volume of clients they have taken on, and we cannot keep skipping paychecks. I happily signed it and immediately got to work on the HR issue. Managed to even fix it that same day. It was just a simple problem with the permissions of HR and payroll in the ERP due to the update. TLDR. I was doing work outside my job title. Supervisor gets mad and tells me no. I stop, and company is unable to pay employees for 2 weeks. Vice President finally caves in and gives me promotion to do said work outside my job title, along with a raise. The malicious compliance was perfect, and it was executed flawlessly. By following Manger's orders and leaving the ERP system alone, OP exposed management's short-sightedness and incompetence, and the management only understood OP's value when they came under heavy pressure. BTW, the compliance was masterclass. The next story from Sabrina Spellman 1. Solicitor embarrassed me and made me cry 3 times. So I became super efficient at my job. This happened many years ago. I've only just found this sub, and while my story is nowhere near as witty as the ones I'm reading, it still makes me chuckle. When I was around 19, I was working as a receptionist, front of house at a solicitor's office. It was quite small but very successful. 4 partners. Main one was the lady it was named after, who was kind of fierce in a Judge Judy kind of way, so I'll call her Judy. A new solicitor we will call Anna joined the team. We had a conveyancing, a personal injury, financial and criminal department solicitor, and she would be working family law, and her specialty and main focus would be helping domestic violence victims. At this time, all of the abused clients were women. She was awesome at her job. I saw so many victims of abuse while they waited in reception, and because they were so stressed and worried, they would sometimes just tell me their life stories while they waited. I did my best to comfort them. Sometimes they'd have to wait an hour or longer if something else was happening. Anna advocated hard for these women. Restraining orders, emergency hearings, police interviews, protection, arranging safe houses, custody of children. I really admired her, and still do now. Those women needed her. The thing about Anna was she was extremely posh. Well-educated, she spoke better than the characters on Downton Abbey or even the Queen. But she was also very opinionated, and she swore a lot. Hearing her talk about one of the husbands of a battered woman, what an absolute twitting little cunt, in a voice that sounds similar to the Queen, made us giggle, but she reined it in and was mostly professional in front of clients. Most of my job was filing, typing voice dictation statements, and logging calls from the women with restraining orders who had been contacted by their ex-partner/abuser. So I'd get a lot of calls. Hi Sabrina, he called me at 8:15 a.m. and 10 a.m. today, also an email at 9 p.m. through his mother's account. Things like that. It all had to be logged and reported for the court files. I got so many of these calls I'd recognize each by voice. This is important later. After she'd been there for maybe a month, she was featured in an article that put the office in a very good light. The article highlighted her important work in keeping these people safe. We celebrated with her. But it went to her head, and she became arrogant and snappy, with little put-downs here to the secretaries and other workers. She became pretty full of herself, getting snarky and barking out, "Coffee," to me as soon as she walked inside. I let it go. She was stressed and doing something important. As it was so long ago, most documents had to be faxed. Her office was 2 doors away from reception. She would let me know if she was expecting something important, and I would drop everything to rush the documents to her. Waiting for legal stuff, police reports, or restraining orders could quite literally be a life and death situation for the clients. Sure enough, a restraining order document came through for a female client who was sitting with Anna in her office. She was crying, looked like she had no sleep. Her story was horrendous. I had to type up some statements of hers. I felt desperately sorry for her. The rule was, if something important came through, I had to rush and interrupt any client meeting. The papers came through, I rushed to the office and handed them to Anna and left. Moments later, Anna was in reception screeching at me because the timestamp said it was delivered a whole hour earlier. I was confused I'd given it to her the moment it came through. She would not stop yelling that I had put this woman's life in jeopardy over my laziness and stupidity, and I should be fired. She made so much noise that Judy came out of her office to listen, the founder of the company. Her face gave absolutely nothing away, and afterwards she quietly just said, "Please make sure to give the documents quickly in future to avoid any more problems." It happened again. An 8 or so page document came through for that same client who was in there with her. I rushed to her office, handed them to her, and went to leave. Before I could, Anna started yelling at me again. This was an hour ago. What the f, Sabrina? What the f did I tell you? This time, she started swearing, and I couldn't get a word in. And all of this in front of the poor client who looked wildly uncomfortable. Judy came to the door again and again, her face gave nothing away, and just asked me to come with her. She asked if there was a problem, I explained, and she thanked me. Anna then followed us out and started yelling at me that I had no respect or kindness in my heart for these women, and I was lazy, utterly incompetent, and ridiculously not right in the head. I cried in the toilets. Over the next few days, the same client came in. Things had escalated further and had hit the newspapers. It was an awful case, so the 4 partners along with Anna were meeting with her in the same office. I went back in to give a file to one of the other partners there, and Anna piped up, "Was this from an hour ago too? There seems to be a pattern here." Again, in front of the client and her 4 bosses. It didn't bother me this time though. I'd had one of those moments in bed the night before. The moment when your eyes snap open while you're trying to sleep and you have that bingo realization moment. So I calmly just said, "The reason why the documents appeared to be an hour late was because the clocks have changed for daylight savings time. I should have realized that when the ink was still not dry as I handed them to you." Sure enough, the document on her desk yesterday was a little smudged. The fax machine was old and didn't update the time. My little victory moment was spoiled because as I was leaving the office, I tripped over my own foot and knocked my head on the doorframe, giving Anna a good laugh. The next day, a staff meeting was called about professionalism in the office. The client who witnessed Anna's meltdown had approached Judy. She was really upset to see Anna treat the staff that way, and her swearing had frightened her. Judy was very clear that this was not acceptable. The woman had heard enough yelling and swearing for a lifetime. Anna begrudgingly apologized to me, and I shrugged it off. Judy also apologized privately for not stepping in when she should have. No problem. My malicious compliance was next. Every single call I had to log, instead of the main list I used on the computer, from the women I wrote on an individual post-it. So I'd be in and out of her office sometimes 10 times an hour. Her desk was flooded with post-its that just said 10 a.m. call from husband to client X. She was annoyed, but this was what she asked for. I wasted a lot of post-its. The next bit got a little strange. A lady who was in a shelter safe house with her daughter called and said she was reconciling with her husband and she wants to drop the case completely and did not want to be contacted again. This happens. Sometimes abused victims go back when it gets too much. This was a particularly brutal case. She'd been beaten really badly. I told Anna straight away who said she would call her in a few days. Calling right then might jeopardize her safety if he was there, and I said no. Call the police. She asked why, and I said it wasn't her on the phone. I recognize her voice every time she calls. It wasn't her. We called for a welfare check, and sure enough, her husband had taken her forcefully back home and had his older daughter call the office pretending to be her. He was arrested. When it all worked out well, and the lady was again in a much better safe house, Anna gifted me a bottle of wine and a thank you card, and then asked me to stop with the post-its and that the message was received. She also apologized again properly. Sorry for the long post. Moral of the story is don't treat people like crap, even if your intentions are pure, and trying to help someone. We can all be kind. Eat it. Thank you for the awards and kind words. You're all awesome. I think I didn't make clear that I'm not in that field anymore. It was a job I took after dropped out of college. I left after having my first son and then started working safeguarding 1-1 support at a school. The nice comments really made me smile. Thank you very much. Edit 2. I honestly did not think this post would reach so many people, and people with lovely good hearts that would say such nice and genuinely kind things to me. Some people have asked me for a TL, DR, so here goes. TL, DR, I was treated badly and belittled in front of a client and cried in the toilets. I bombarded Boss Anna with individual updates and progress updates on post-it notes, so she would see what I was handling minute by minute. Her office was flooded with yellow post-it notes, and we handled a situation afterwards together. We ended up working together. Thank you for your kind words. It was more of a petty revenge. OP did a wonderful job by standing for himself and getting the solicitor realized her mistake. If you don't stand for yourself, no one care about your respect and welfare. If you really want to live a peaceful life, you must be able to take a stand for yourself.